When you pull up to the football pitch, all you need is a ball with a decent amount of air and you're good to go. But you may be wondering, why do some footballs go for more than $150 while others you can pick up for $15? Well, right here I got the Adidas Tango 12, which I picked up many years ago for just $30. And over here I got the iconic match replica of the Adidas Brazuca, which was used in the 2014 World Cup. And when it came out, this ball sold for as much as $180. But is this ball actually 5 times as good as this ball? Well, in this video, we're gonna be covering the differences between these two just to give you an idea of what it's like playing with a cheaper ball versus a more expensive one. And I'll also talk about whether or not I think it's worth spending a little bit extra money to get a better ball. So let's start out by talking about the touch and feel of these footballs, starting at the cheaper $30 Tango 12. So the texture of this ball is actually really smooth on the outside, and it has a wide variety of panels that are all different shapes and sizes. And then beneath that slick coating, you're gonna have a really soft, pretty padded foam that gives the ball a really cushioned feel. And if you look closely at the separation between the panels on this ball, you can actually see the stitching that's performed on the outside to help adhere the panels together. And you can even see in some places, just because of how much I've used this ball, it has ripped in certain areas. And then also, as you can tell, at many different parts of this ball, that thin foam coating has ripped and torn several different areas. Thankfully, this doesn't really affect the playability of the ball. Then moving on to the more expensive Brazuca here, this ball is gonna be padded as well, but it's gonna be a lot firmer on the outside. So it's not gonna have that soft or squishy feel. It's gonna feel a lot more dense. And instead of having that really slick coating, it's actually gonna be textured on the outside here with these little micro dots that you might be able to see here if I just get a little bit closer. And that's just gonna add a nice light amount of grip to the ball when you're playing with it. And another unique thing that I really love about the Brazuca specifically is that this ball actually has panels that are all identical shapes. You can see here, they almost look like throwing stars. They have this really cool shape. And the way that they're stitched together is actually pretty seamless here. So if you look at the gaps between the panels, you can't actually see any visible stitching. Now Adidas, when they're putting their higher quality balls together, same with other brands, they're gonna use heat molding so that they're not gonna get those specific stitch marks. And as you can tell, I've used this ball for many, many years and there are no rips at the seams here, so it's really well put together. And that's gonna be the perfect segue to discuss the durability of these footballs. And I will say, although the more expensive Brazuca has performed better in this area, they've both performed pretty well over time, considering that I've had these footballs for close to 10 years. But obviously the Tango 12 has definitely got more visible wear and tear on it. I think that's mostly going to be due to that really soft, slightly lower quality foam that's used on the outside of the ball. It's just been really prone to chip in certain areas, as you can see right here, for example. And as I already mentioned, since the stitching has broken in several different areas, that means that the days of this football are probably numbered. Then on the other hand, you look at the Brazuca, and from the exterior, this ball does still look like it's in perfect condition. And while I agree that's the case, there are some differences with the ball now compared to when I got it. And the biggest difference being this ball just doesn't do a great job at retaining air over a long period of time. Now I have checked by submerging this ball in water that there's no leaks on the ball, but that's not actually the reason why it's losing air at a faster rate. It's actually to do with the construction of the ball itself, and it's one of the big things that separates more expensive balls from cheaper balls. So to understand why this phenomenon happens as far as losing air pressure, we have to understand a little bit more about the build quality and the construction process for these footballs. Because beyond the exterior of these footballs that we've already discussed, this light padded coating here, you're gonna have an interior construction of the ball called the bladder, and that's what's actually holding the air. Now, cheaper footballs such as this one are gonna have a bladder that's constructed with synthetic rubber that's really good at holding air for long periods of time, but can have a slightly harder feel. On the other hand, more expensive balls are gonna have a natural latex bladder, which is more expensive to construct and it's slightly more prone to losing air over time. But that natural latex is also gonna give the ball a slightly more soft and padded feel when it's inflated, and that's something that you can only really get with a premium match ball like this. And then there are going to be more differences in the fine tuning and detail of these balls as well. For example, when you look at the valve on both of these footballs, on the cheaper ball here, it's going to actually be a little bit raised from the surface. And so that's going to kind of disrupt the spherical nature of the ball and make it not really that perfect circle shape. But then when you look at the Brazuca, the valve is actually embedded just beneath the surface there. So it's going to give you a really flush finish there. That's just going to make the surface of the ball really smooth. But as far as playing with these two different footballs, do I actually notice any major differences? Well, first off, I gotta give a shout out to the $30 Tango 12 here, because when I pump this ball up, I swear it stays inflated for literally months on end. I think the last time I inflated this ball was over 2 months ago, and despite playing with it dozens of times since then, it's still fully inflated. The Brazuca, on the other hand, this ball is gonna lose its air pressure just after a couple days. So that's why whenever I go to the field and I wanna use this ball, I have to make sure I have my pump on me. But when I do get to the pitch and I pump up a ball like this one, I think it's just easier to get that sweet spot with the pressure. You know when you're inflating your football and you're trying to get to the point where it's not too soft and doesn't have too much give, but you also don't want it hard as a rock? I think it's a lot easier to hit that sweet spot with this ball. And that's been the same situation for any other World Cup ball that I've tried, as well as the official Premier League ball, the Nike Flight. Now don't get me wrong, when you inflate this ball to regulation pressure, it's still gonna be pretty hard. But even when it's fully inflated, it doesn't quite lose that softness that you have on the exterior. That being said, when I fully inflate the Tango 12 here, it does kind of turn into a rock. And then just to sing more praises of the Brazuca here, it does have that really nice texture on the top of the ball. Those little micro dots do give you just the right amount of grip when you're dribbling, shooting, or passing. Even just when you're juggling, you can definitely notice the slightly more premium feel. But don't get me wrong, the $30 ball still works fine, and I use it almost every training session. And part of that is because, as I already mentioned, this ball retains pressure, so I just don't have to worry about pumping it up every single time. And also, maybe most importantly, it's cheap. So I'm not terrified of losing it or getting it stolen, and I also don't mind using it when I'm playing on the street or just kicking it against the curb. But is using a cheaper ball like this or a more expensive ball gonna actually have an impact on your technique? Well, in my opinion, the answer to that is no. Now, I did think that having a little bit more grip on the Brazuca here would maybe help you with curved shots or getting more traction on the ball, but honestly, I didn't notice much of a difference when shooting with both of these footballs. The only thing I will note is when you inflate them to about the same pressure, the Tango 12 does feel just a little bit harder, especially when it's wet outside. Heading this ball, just get ready. The Brazuca is a little bit less punishing on your first touch and just feels a little bit softer to control. So with all that being said, yeah, obviously the more expensive ball is gonna be a little bit better, but is it 5 times better? And is it actually worth getting a ball that could cost you more than 150 bucks? Well, in my personal experience, I actually think it is worth having maybe just one nice football in your entire collection. Because when you think about it, certain boots these days are gonna cost you $200 or more, and they're only gonna last you a season or two. Whereas a football, on the other hand, as long as you treat it well and don't lose it, it can last you years upon years. Now that being said, you don't have to go out and buy a World Cup replica or a Nike Flight. If you want a great football and you're shopping on more of a budget, this is the Puma Orbita, and it comes in at around $50 to $60. And you're gonna get a really nice construction, pretty seamless design between the panels here with no visible stitching, and it doesn't break the bank. But my favorite thing about having a really nice ball is it actually does encourage me to get out on the pitch, because I always want to play with it, and it can be great for using in your individual training sessions. But just a word of warning, if you do have a really nice ball that you care about, don't take it to pick up, don't take it to a game, because if you get it lost or stolen, it really sucks. Just keep it for yourself or use it for playing small-sided games with close friends. So that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know if you have a football that you like the most and what you think the biggest difference is between a more expensive ball and a cheaper ball. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more football content, and I'll see you in the next video.